Okay, we might get cracking. Rob, would you like to come up? Rob from Gates, Cambridge. Thank you, Rob.
So as he said, my name is Rob Perrons, and I, at various junctures in my journey, I was kind of wearing a few different hats. So I was in the first crop of Gates Cambridge Scholars. That program started in 2000. And I was also part of the machinery for the selection process while I was living in the U.S. So I can kind of tell you what's in the how that works and how it looks a little bit. And finally, until very recently, I was the local guy for the Alumni Association for the Gates Cambridge alumni community in Australia and New Zealand. So I can kind of tell you what happens, what does life look like post-Cambridge? What happens to you then? Well, we can talk about that too. I have at the bottom of the last line on this slide, can you see that okay? Right. I've got a link there that goes to my QUT homepage. I'm a faculty member here at QUT. And therein you can find all the contact info about how to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm always delighted to hear from people who are wondering about the program, and I would love to put you in touch with whatever I know. So a quick overview. So let me just kind of, in the interest of efficiency, explain how I'm going to pitch this. I heard with Ben with the Rhodes program and then with the Fulbright presentation you just heard, there's a lot of common elements there. So what I'd like to do is basically I want to talk about the ways that this is different because there's a lot about these things that are the same. In fact, a little bit of history about the whole thing. Bill Gates, when him and his wife Melinda were kind of figuring out what to do with their sprawling empire of billions and how to improve the lot of thy fellow man and thy fellow woman, they kind of had a few philanthropic directions that they wanted to kind of go into. And they have educational programs and scholarship programs, among other projects, of course, which are aimed at helping people who need a leg up, who might have been economically disadvantaged, and they kind of target those areas, especially in the United States. They set this program apart as being all about, frankly, the quality of the whole thing. And if you want to really have planet-changing, like whole of civilization types of events where we're all richer for having had that great idea, those frequently happen at great places of learning, of which that's a pretty short list of places that kind of fit that description. And Bill Gates thought that might be a great place to try to make a splash like that. So he took a lot of inspiration in building the Gates Cambridge Scholarship. A lot of the inspiration came, quite frankly, from the Oxford program. But there are a few distinguishing differences, and I'd like to kind of zoom in on those. So, obviously, a competitive scholarship program. I will be regaling you in a few slides with the statistics about exactly how competitive. This is overwhelmingly about postgraduate degree opportunities at the University of Cambridge. As someone asked me earlier, just to be clear, are we talking about Cambridge, England, or Cambridge, Massachusetts? This is absolutely Cambridge, England. Cambridge, Massachusetts is lovely in the fall, but that's just not where this story is happening. Established, as I said, in the year 2000 by a gift of $210 million US from the Gates Foundation. And one of the curious things about this program that kind of sets it apart, you see Bill Gates there in the procession walking to a graduation there. One of the weird things about the scholarship program is that the person who gave us all that money is alive. That's kind of different from a lot of these other programs. So. We don't have to speculate, gee, I wonder what his motives were when he made this program. You can ask him. And every few years he makes this pilgrimage with his wife, or sometimes his dad goes, or he's getting a little older now, so dad doesn't come so much, but you can actually hear it from him. Here's my vision. Here's what I want you to do here. And it's powerful and moving to hear that, because he's a man with big ideas and big visions, and he has some grand designs for what he's hoping you'll achieve, and it's something to hear that. And I suppose that it's only remarkable for how unremarkable it is when you've heard the preamble for the other two scholarships, that here too we want to build a global network of future leaders committed to improving the lives of others. So you are welcome to come from any country in the world at all, save one, and that is the United Kingdom. Obviously, there's not a lot of mileage to be enjoyed by sending people from the UK to the UK for an overseas educational experience. Obviously, someone had to be excluded for that. What's the size and shape of educational experience that you can have? And I don't think that there's any favorite on this list. It could be a doctorate, it could be a master's, and there's various types of those. MPhil, MBA, you can even do a graduate diploma if you want. So whatever is the right size and shape for the educational experience that you are looking for, as long as it's postgraduate in nature, it fits this. No age limit, that's important. The Rhodes program, bless its cotton socks, it's got a lot going for it, but it's quite prescriptive about here's the age range that you must be. That's just not here. So let's talk a little bit about the money part. One of the things that I find a little bit limiting by just throwing up statistics in pounds sterling is that you might look at that and go, is that enough? Am I living in the lap of luxury, or what does that number mean exactly? So let me spell that out for you. It will be subsistence living for as long as you're there for your degree program. The airfare to get there, the airfare to come back, all the fees that you need to get covered are going to get covered. Plus this small amount of money for you to live. It's enough to live, but you will not be giggling all the way to the bank. It's just enough. Let's talk about the breakdown of how the numbers look. So 45% year on year, give or take, 45% come from the United States. This is one of the terms and conditions that Cambridge had to swallow for this scholarship to be set up. Bill Gates, basically the logic went something like this. He said, look, if it wasn't for the United States and the rather interesting combination of resources and opportunities that it has given me, speaking in his voice, my billions would not have been possible. So he says, kind of tipping my hat to the land that I love and the country that gave rise to this possibility, he said, I insist that 45% of the scholarships go to U.S. citizens. By the way, I'm Canadian, so I'm in that other country's bucket that most of you would probably find yourselves in. The steady state number for scholars in residence at the moment is about 225. You can see there that green sliver on the pie chart here, 6% of the awards in the 14 or 15 years since the inception of the program, 6% have gone to people from Australasia. So let's talk about what does it take. This is something that Ben mentioned with there's no one archetype of Rhodes Scholar. And similarly, let me go beyond that with the Gates program. One is almost, it just defies any kind of trend. There's such a plurality and such a diversity in the kinds of people that go into this program that you're really hard-pressed to even find commonality in some ways. And part of the logic here, Gates basically said, look, there's lots of second and third order ways that people can make profound contributions in society. He said, look at me, I'm a software guy who made so much money that now we can eradicate diseases. So the end point was, hey, we're eradicating diseases, but you would not have really suspected that logical line and how it happened. You never see these things coming in history. So he said, I'm extremely agnostic as to exactly how your contribution gets made, because somehow it all seems to work out as long as talented people are given the opportunity to do really amazing things, beautiful things will happen. I won't go through chapter and verse on this part. I think that it's probably sufficiently well covered in the materials we've made available to you and the website and the Scouts Honor Promise to answer any questions you might have. I want to draw your attention to the numbers here. You might look at these success rates at the bottom layer there and say, international round, success rate 1.5%. You might find that very deflating. You might think, well, that was a waste of 15 minutes of my life listening to this. Why would I waste the stamp on that, right? Well, don't feel that way. I really I mean, everyone who hit the send button on that application, I think everybody had that same feeling in the pit of their stomach, like, oh, look at those daunting odds. And those people who eventually went through, that it's only by kind of pushing through that it does, they're real people. They could be you. There's no reason why you can't be this. I would encourage you to, if this looks like a good fit to you, to give this a serious look. One of the other things that I should draw attention to is the fact that whereas Ben, and maybe to a lesser degree this is true of Fulbright also, but Ben explained how in the Rhodes system there's an extremely well put together architecture of throughout the country, throughout every country where the Rhodes scholarship operates, where they have like a state level organization and then a national organization. It's kind of like, you know, Russian stacking dolls. You get all these levels of organization that are very meticulously put together. That is a little less true for the Gates program. Basically, it's like either you're from the US or you're not from the US. And then they basically just kind of route your application according to which of those two buckets you fall into. But there is no national clearinghouse or state level clearinghouse for the Gates program. That might be just a legacy of the fact that they have a 100-year head start on us on this one. So, just in the interest of time management, I'm going to skip through these things. I do want to draw your attention to the chronology of these things, though. The international round, this is for up to the minute deadlines. The final arbiter on that one is going to be whatever's on the website. This is a little bit dated information from a few weeks ago that I received this from the Gates folks. So make sure you're watching the website closely to look at the exact timing of these things. But it won't deviate much year on year. We're not trying to surprise everybody by shifting everything 6 months earlier this year. It's not going to happen like that. It'll pretty closely mimic what happened here. The timing of this, as you might expect, is very Northern Hemisphere centric. This is kind of like the rhythm of how applications happen in that half of the world. But so that's the timing there. Oh, a little bit about the interview process. In the US, they're flown to Annapolis, Maryland, and all the interviews are done there. Outside of the United States, it's because of the uncommon diversity in home countries for the applicants. We necessarily have to be a little bit more flexible about these things. So, where possible, if they're within striking distance, we'll try to get people on a plane over to Cambridge, England, to do some interviewing there. Failing that, we've also plea bargained to phone call interviews. That has happened because we don't have, in many countries, we just don't have the network of people and infrastructure to put boots on the ground everywhere. Finally, just a couple of comments about the informal aspects. I've talked so far about the formal parts and the paperwork, etc. Let's talk about the informal parts. Here's who you're going to meet if this works out for you. Prepare to be amazed and inspired and surprised. You're going to be surrounded by a population and a community of people who will stretch your notions of what you thought people could do, who impress you with the courage that they exhibit to fight the good fight, to have big, lofty ideas and ideals, and who genuinely and sincerely want to change the world, and who exhibit the firepower to make that happen. So more than just a slush fund for pushing you through grad school, this will change you, all for the better. And I think that's all I wanted to say. If you have any questions, I'll do my level best to answer.
So you mentioned before that you accept people from everywhere, citizens and everything. So
Yeah.
how do you compare their achievements or their experiences? Like, do you mostly look at the mark or the overall GPA, the university they come from, their life experiences, or?
So I'm going to frustrate you because I'm going to say yes to all those things. It didn't come down to one single metric. I'm trying to find a slide that captures that. Here we go. Academic transcripts. Some of your application is going to be, just playing it by the numbers. By the way, you might be curious, what does that look like? They have a minimum requirement using the American 4.0 scale. Thou shalt not apply with less than a 3.5. But I think that the running average for Gates scholars over the last several years, I remember reading from the cheat sheet they gave me before I came up, the average is 3.92 out of 4. So you had to have been doing your homework consistently for a very long time. So you got to have the grades thing sorted out. Next to zero, the focus on things like athletic accomplishments. I know that the roads, historically, I know that they're toning it down now, but historically there's usually been some kind of athletic thing in the roads. Ben alluded to that. I'll cut you in on a little secret. Bill Gates, not much of a sportsman. So yeah, I was surprised too. Anyway, so there's absolutely zero component of that in this program. References, glowing letters from the right kinds of people who say this person can deliver, and stuff that shows a documented paper trail of some description that shows proof positive this person has leadership potential. Not just to have grand ideas that sit between your ears and never make it out, but do you have what it takes to get those ideas out and to inspire and to change people's minds about things and to change the world around you? Because that's what you are supposed to be, an agent of change to make the world a better place.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think
Great.
that's it. Thanks,
Thank you
Rob.
very much.
Thank you.